break. So at this point, we'd like to get into talking about some tools and primarily talking about this one tool we call the Drought Index Portal, based out of CU Boulder, also among our team famously called the DrIP tool. And so I just want to also acknowledge all the people involved in kind of developing this tool. And a quick history is that it's Bill Travis and his student Travis Williams initially thought of developing this tool to help them with some ranching and drought-based decisions. And then the idea was to compare different indices. They needed a tool to look at different indices and explore how, if we use different indices, we'll make different decisions. And since the skeleton for that tool was there, the team took it to the next level of making it available for researchers at large, to kind of have the ability to quickly access drought indices, the data, spatial, primarily the time series data, but it also provides spatial, plotting ability that you can look at spatial trends that's emerging. But I think one of my interests was really exploring the time series data and making it available for research purposes. So again, the tool is really developed and refined to provide ability to quickly display, compare, and extract time series data for various drought indicators in the contiguous US. So it has lots of bells and whistles. So I'm just going to talk about a few of them. So first, the tool works with several different drought indices and climate variables. So just kind of listed them here, all these drought indices, but also these climate variables, the temperature, precipitation, and BPD data that could be useful to practitioners. So you can plot time series of these data and extract and download these data sets. And it has a really cool ability to do this location region selection. So you can work with states, counties by just putting the name, but also can work with shapefile or different kinds of polygons, including point selection. Again, a lot of flexibility to work with time selection as well, and I'll just demonstrate that pretty soon. Ability to, again, download time series data and kind of image files. We also introduced toward the later on, later on in the development process, ability to kind of plot these different drought indices in the US drought monitor categories, and I'll kind of describe that more in a bit. So yeah, before I get into kind of a live demo of the tool, just showing that, yeah, it can help you plot time series like these, and just explore the tendency or the kind of the behavior of drought over time in your region, and do that with several different indices. And yeah, as I said, we are very familiar with the US Drought Monitor time series or depiction of drought, and these categories of going from severe drought to exceptional drought. But you can actually do those same category plots using different indices of your selection, and you can generate the time series of those indices in these USDA categories, which could be really helpful in thinking about the impacts at just a different way to visualize it, and that could really inform you. So at this point, I believe I'm getting into a live DrIP demo. And I'm just hoping everything will work.
Imtiaz, we have a question you might want to cover before.
Yeah, sure.
It's from Tyler in the chat. Is the DrIP data taken from GridMet, or where is the data originating?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. I meant to say that. So yeah, more information about all of this is in our user guide, and I'll point out where that is. But almost all of this data comes from the West-wide drought tracker, except for the EDDI data. And the West-wide drought tracker uses PRISM as its primary data to kind of produce the climate variables as well as the drought variables. The EDDI data uses the NOAA NLDES data set to generate potential ET and then calculate EDDI. And NLDES is partly based on PRISM and partly it's based on our data. Okay, so so I'm just going to give you a quick demo of the tool, and then we all can get into a breakout group and work with this. So I'll start with what's up in the header space. So if when you come to the tool, it's droughtindex.portal.colorado.edu, and so what you usually would see are these 4 plots, 2 spatial plots and 2 time series plots. So really, a quick ability to compare drought indices, 2 drought indices. So let's start with what's up here in the header space. If you hover around those acronyms, it tells you what's in there. So these are all these indices that are available. The Larry index, we had it earlier. We don't have it now. We would like to bring it back later on. There was some issue with that. So there are some options up here in the header space that you can turn on and off, and I'll explain what they mean. So if you turn the display options on, and it's a very important option out there, you get a lot more options to play with. So here you can choose your time period during which you want to examine the data set. And so it can, the longest you can go to is 1900. The longest data set is 1900 to 2022 that you can access. You can work with different months. By default, all months are selected. You can also work with the map type and change the gradients of the map. And then in these function category, there are these important options that can really influence your plot. Again, the default option is mean value of index, but see, you can work with maximum, minimum value of index. And then I'll get into explaining the drought severity area thing that's we use to work with the US drought monitor categories for these indices. So once you make any selection here, it's important to click on submit options for that to be incorporated in the plots below. So it's very important. So initially, you see the data is from 1980 to 2020. Now it's changing from 1900 to 2020. Okay, so let me just talk about the plots a little bit, the options in the plots. You can zoom in and out in these spatial plots. And if you are looking at the time series, you can, if you go to close to the y-axis, and when you see this particular sign, you kind of double click, it kind of can adjust your time series plot. And yeah, and there are different ways to visualize these plots too. And so there are some options up here on top of the time series plot. There is this option of edit the plot in Chart Studio. And if you click on that, it takes you to this Plotly tool where you can actually work with the time series and just kind of develop this figure further and just make it of publishable quality. Again, this floppy sign up here that allows you to do that. But and then there's the next one out here is just download that plot as PNG. I've seen that the PNG is of a lower quality when you download through that. Sometimes it's actually better to just take a screenshot of this and use it. So that's, I found, is of higher quality. And then there is this option here where you can click and download this data set that's up here. And it gives you a .csv file for that. Let me talk about options here, just on top of the plot. So here is we can select different drought indices and climate variables. So again, you can pick. So by default, there's an SPEI 6 here and FDSI here, but again, you can make your own choice here. So let's pick an SPEI 3-month index. And then here are the options for selecting different locations. And so I'm just going to talk about the county and states right now. So let's pick Boulder County. So you can just type in Boulder and it will show up. And if you select on that, sometimes you need to click update, but usually you don't. And it kind of has selected these 3 pixels, or which is working. So I need to mention one more thing here about data. So the original data is at 1 kilometer, but for this tool, it's coarsened to a 1/4 degree to make it work fast. So we do think that there's a lot of spatial correlation, autocorrelation spatially. So for something like a large scale drought process, this works well, working with that kind of slightly coarser resolution. Just as it was more efficient for the tool to coarsen the data. And we are looking into perhaps making working with higher resolution in the future. So that's one way to select county. And then you can also select states, or combination of states, multiple states. So let's see, let me select the Northern Plains state here. So you can just type in, if you know the state abbreviation here. So I'm just typing Montana, Wyoming, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota. So again, it should do it on its own, but sometimes you need to click update for it to change to a different spatial selection. So yeah, once you know that a particular region selected, you're pretty confident that the time series generated here is from that region. It should also mention it down here. So again, you can look at these data set this way. I'll go and kind of do some specific month selection here. So if you want to select months, you can work with both the scroll tool or this checkbox tool. So a quick way to select a particular month would be, yeah, just say none, and then select the months of your choice. So let me pick July. Again, it's important to submit those options, and then you see that it says it's a specific month selected. It shows up here, and the time series is changed based on that. So you're just looking at the July value of that index going back to 1900. Couple more things I want to say. So right now, it's a location selected here is also selected on the other plot, but you can work with one location here, the other location there. You have to turn the location syncing off here. So that will allow you to work 2 different locations on 2 different plots. Also, the time period is synced between the 2, but if you want to work on one particular time period on this plot and a different time period on this plot, you have to turn the date syncing off. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention very quickly is this description tab. So it's turned off as a default, but if you turn it on, it just kind of tells you more about where the data is coming from, and it has a link to a detailed user guide. So if you click that, you can just download this PDF. And really, and Travis has provided lot of details on different things you can do. And I've just explained some of them, but you can do a lot of cool spatial analysis, correlation, spatial correlation, etc., which I just don't have the time to go into today. And we also have link for this user guide and the exercise document that we'll provide you shortly. And lastly, something we'll talk about at the very end today is the ability to do projections, future projections of these indices. So we have developed separate R Shiny app packages, and that for the moment allows to project 4 different drought indices, that SPEI, SPEI, EDDI, and FDSI, into future throughout the 21st century under different climate scenarios. It, however, only works with point location.